Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to see how to create deployment in Kubernetes. So we are going to use AWS EKS cluster to work through this, and we have seen how to create EKS cluster, how to create pod, how to even create replica set. All this is seen in earlier tutorial. So please refer to that if you haven't seen that. But today we are going to see how to create deployment. And for creating a deployment, you need to know what is pod, what is a replica set. So I highly recommend to watch other earlier videos. Okay, so let's get into EKS cluster first of all. So I'm going to EKS. You can see I'm already logged into management console. I'm into North Virginia. So I'm going to cluster and using Cloud Shell to connect to the cluster. Okay, so I have set up alias already. Alias k is equal to kubectl. So it becomes our life easy. K get pods. So there are no pods created so far. Get deployment. So let's see, like I don't see like any deployment created. Okay, so there are no pods, there is no deployment. And what deployment is, right? You can refer to the Kubernetes documentation. But like what basically deployment does is a deployment provides declarative updates for pods and replica set. And one of the use case for using deployment is create a deployment to roll out replica set. So replica set creates pods in the background. So what we have seen earlier is pod and replica set, right? We are just making use of those concepts when you are talking about deployment. So deployment manage that replica set, and pods will be created as part of the replica set itself in background. So that is what it is. So let me just go into deployment, and if you see this deploy, we'll just go through like a syntax of creating a deployment declarative way. When you understand how to create a declarative way, right, then creating an interactive way on faster manner is easier for you, so you know what you are doing. So for declarative way, you still need that API version, kind, metadata, and spec. So in every of our object, right, we are talking about these four main points, which is API version, kind, metadata, and spec. So API version app/v1, kind is deployment instead of replica set or pod, what we have seen earlier. And then metadata, you can give name, you can give label. So this is label is for deployment. It is nothing to do with your pod selections here, right? So then spec, we are giving spec, we are giving replicas 3. Selector, so selector is something like match labels. So what it is doing is like whatever pod has this like label associated with that app nginx, it is part of this deployment, right? And in template is nothing but you're telling what pod should to be created by deployment and replica set in turn, right? Because finally like replica set is something which is creating a pod in background, but that is managed through deployment. So here we are giving that template of the pod, and we seen exactly same when you are talking about replica set. Yeah, so I'll quickly go through the few important things to understand how you creating a deployment. Then replicas, we talked about replica set create 3 replicated pods, so which is indicated by replica in above definition. And then selector is the important thing. The selector field defines how the created replica set finds which pods to manage. So in this case, you select a label that is defined in the pod template, which app is equal to nginx. Then using that label, it will find out pods which has to be managed by replica set and deployment, right? So and template is how you want to create this pod. So pod label are this, and this label is important. If you give different label, then this is a problem, because your selector in deployment definition is pointing out to this label. So make sure that you create like set up a right label for it. That's it. So this is how to create deployment. Now let's do it in practice, right? So I just want to show you this YAML file. So this YAML file I just created, right? API version, kind, metadata, label. This label doesn't matter because this is label to your deployment, not used for selection. Then spec replicas 3, selector match labels. Here I am giving environment is equal to demo, and the same label should be there in your pod. So template is like giving configuration or image details for your pod, right? So name is nginx and image is nginx and label is environment. Okay, so this is how you will create deployment. If you see pod, right, so pod doesn't doesn't have much difference in configuration. If you see for template, when I'm talking about template, right, it is exactly same. So if I see this, right, metadata and spec, it is exactly what you can copy and put it here. Here I used a different environment for like a different label which is env, but that doesn't matter, right? You can even create a pod with exact same metadata and spec what you specified here. So what I just want to show you, like, is template is nothing but everything in your pod configuration file, YAML file, except API version and kind. So that is a template, and this is same applies to ReplicaSet. If you see ReplicaSet, right, ReplicaSet is very close to deployment, and template is again same like what you are giving it for deployment, right? So same like pod definition. So you can see that there is not much difference between deployment and ReplicaSet. Okay, so with this, let me create a deployment now. Create -f deployment. Okay, so it is started creating deployment, and get deployment. Okay, let me clear screen and get deployment. Right, you can see deployment created. Get ReplicaSet. Right, so you can see that ReplicaSet is names is derived from deployment name, demo deployment, and then it's adding some number, so that is derived from your deployment itself. And same information you can see desired current and ready pods 333. Get pods. So now this is something which ReplicaSet created. So if you see, it derives name from ReplicaSet. So demo deployment and this number remains same, which is ReplicaSet, and then you are adding another number for pods, right? So what I'm trying to convey is, when you are creating deployment, says in turn Kubernetes will create ReplicaSet derived name from deployment name, then it ReplicaSet in turn creates pods, whatever replicas you wanted it to create, and then the name is derived from ReplicaSet, right? So this is easy way to identify whether it is part of any deployment or not, right? And then now if I go ahead and delete one of the pod, okay, delete pod, let me delete the first one, right? Any one, I just want to delete one pod out of this just to show you. Okay, so I'm deleting one pod, and let's see whether we have 2 or 3. So now you can see, even after deleting one pod, there are 3 pods available, and one is created 5 seconds ago, right? So that shows us, like, whenever you are deleting some pod or any issues with one pod, right, it makes sure that it has a desired number of replicas what we have given, which is 3, and that is configurable. You can make it 3, 5, 10, whatever you want, but that is how it works. And you can check that with name as well. These 2 are already there, but this one we created deleted 62942, and the other one is created with some different name. So that is what deployment is. Now this is in like a declarative way of creating it, right? So now you understand different configuration what we need to give in deployment. Even I showed you ReplicaSet and pods, right? Now let's see how you can create deployment in interactive manner. So that is a faster way of creating deployment, and you can very easily create it. So create deployment. Now I'll just give some test deployment as a name, right? Create deployment, test deployment, replicas. I want 2 replicas now, and what image you want that pod to use. So nginx. That's it. So if you see deployment now, you can see one more deployment must have been created, test deployment, in the last 7 seconds. So test deployment, and then if I see get ReplicaSet, So one more replica set, which name is derived from deployment, and then get pods, right? So you can see two replicas, which we given as a replicas 2. So this is as simple, like you can create using interactive way of creating it, or you can use declarative YAML file. Even you can create YAML file from this deployment as well. So you have already running deployment, you can create a YAML file from that. Like we have seen that in earlier tutorial, to using options like to extract YAML file from any Kubernetes object for that matter, right? So like, and you can describe this deployment. Oh, there was a spelling mistake there. Okay, so I'll just take exact name. Yeah, so you can describe this deployment and see configuration associated with that. Even you can see like whatever the replicas you have given, all those things are there. Okay, and even selector, you can see what selector it uses. App is equal to test deployment, because we haven't mentioned selector when you create interactively this last deployment what we just created, test deployment. Okay, so that's it from my end for deployment. I hope like it made it clear to you what is deployment, what is replica set, how internally like replica set get created, then how replica set creates pods based on what configuration you are giving for deployment. So I hope like it made sense to you, and you can try it on your own, and let me know how it goes. So one last thing I want to show you about deployment or deleting deployment as well as whatever objects it has created. So get replica set. If you see that only test deployment replica set is there, like our demo deployment is deleted now. Get pods. Okay, so you can see that the pods which we have created earlier using demo deployment is no more there. So that becomes easy to manage your pods and replica set. You delete the deployment and everything else is deleted as part of that. So that is what another management of deployment, right? I just want to show you that. So that's it guys. Like I hope like you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something new today. If so, please like this video, share, leave your comment so that I know this content is helping you. Don't forget to subscribe, and that's now. Okay, see you again with yet another exciting tutorial about AWS. Keep learning, keep sharing what you learn, and thanks for watching.